Identity politics, no stranger to U.S. election campaigns, has now percolated into the country's diplomacy. Whether it is about morality, the economy, or politics, some in the U.S. have hardened their belief that their country is destined to lead the world. But China, for better or worse, is making the U.S. feel insecure about its vaunted leadership. The rocketing popularity of TikTok and the fast development of Chinese-made tech present the U.S. with a challenge it has never faced before. Without evidence, some in Washington claimed China's tech firms are a national security threat and encouraged allies to follow suit. International suppression is only one of the ways the U.S. is defending its identity. Exploiting and manipulating China's is another. In the last 2 years, China hawks have tried to divide Chinese people into different groups and instigate division. By labeling different groups with different adjectives, they try to paint China as an oppressive country that the international community should avoid. When the U.S. sanctioned the Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo accused China of stepping up its campaign of systemic repression of Uyghurs and other Muslim minority groups.
Is everywhere in daily life, with somewhere over 20,000 mosques. Mike Pompeo could easily come and find out because he's been invited to visit anytime.
China has repeatedly stressed its policy in Xinjiang is about security, but Pompeo deliberately turns a deaf ear, despite being unable to present credible evidence to justify his rhetoric. Similar tactics have been used on Hong Kong. The U.S. tried to paint the protesters as champions for human rights and democracy, while depicting the Chinese government as an authoritarian overlord suppressing its own people. By giving the protesters the same identity, Washington was deliberately indifferent toward the violence and rioting.
It's not about human rights. We don't care about human rights, to be honest. I mean, in the West. Do you believe the Americans, they care about human rights when they invaded Iraq and now there are about 150,000 Iraqis who were killed after the invasion? So what about human rights? What about human rights in Guantanamo? The point is not about human rights. And in Xinjiang today, it's not about human rights. It's clearly about geopolitics and ideology.
Throughout the Cold War and its crusade in the Middle East, the U.S. used identity politics to destabilize countries by making people lose faith in their governments. As China grows more powerful, some U.S. politicians are labeling China in ever more negative ways, in hopes of undermining its international reputation and legitimacy. This is to guard the U.S. from any potential or existing challenges to its hegemony. They weaponize identity to protect the one thing they treasure the most, their superiority. But as the world's sole superpower launches baseless attacks, international stability is collateral damage, and all nations are paying a price.